Hi, guys. Welcome back to Two Moms, Too Much Coffee. This is Jashelle, and we also have
Hey, it's Tempest.
Hey Tempest.
Hey. So, for Black History Month, we wanted to do something a little different. We are talking about Black mothers in history and not just women who were famous, but women whose motherhood, whether biological or chosen, shaped generations.
And we are also talking about them as moms, not just historical figures, because history loves to strip women of the emotional labor, the sacrifice, and of course, the invisible work.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So, jumping right in, Harriet Tubman. That's who we're going to talk about first. So, if you don't know, Harriet Tubman was born into slavery in the early 1800s and survived extreme violence, trauma, and deprivation. After escaping to freedom, she made a choice that still feels almost impossible to even really comprehend, honestly. She went back not once, but repeatedly, returning to slaveholding states to guide others to freedom through the Underground Railroad. What often gets overlooked is the kind of care Harriet provided. She was responsible for people who were terrified, hungry, injured, and extremely exhausted, as I'm sure you can imagine. She had to calm fear, make strategic decisions, and protect lives, knowing that one mistake could cost everyone everything. Sounds pretty familiar. How
Mhm.
is that different from motherhood at its most intense, Tempest?
You know, is it different? Like, I feel like, you don't hear about Harriet Tubman in this light very often. You hear about the Underground Railroad, you hear that she helped people and whatnot. But when you put it like this, where she is literally taking um everybody's life into her hands, and she's responsible for people, calming them down and making sure they're fed and tending to them if they're hurt or I'm sure there's kids involved, there's adults involved, and like if they're injured or exhausted, like so many things. And I that to me screams motherhood. It's exactly how I would describe motherhood. It's like you do so much for people that aren't equipped, or they just need you to help take care of them. And so I feel like it's not that much different. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, especially the protect lives knowing that one mistake it could cost everyone everything, which generally in motherhood, that's why it takes us so long, I feel like, for a lot of us to make decisions because we're like, is this going to be the buy all end all for everything? Is this decision gonna cause so much disruption to my child, to my family? And granted, our decisions are not even close to the decisions that Harriet had to make. So don't even want to say that our day to day is even close to what she experienced as mothers, but it's just so there's so much connection to that as a mom, making strategic decisions for your family, calming fear, like calming your partner, your child, siblings, everyone, just making sure everyone feels like everything's taken care of at all times, and then calming fear in yourself. uh, so I 100% agree that, I mean, what she was doing was a mother. She was being a mother.
Mhm. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And on top of that, Harriet, she didn't have biological children, but her life forces us to ask an important question. Is motherhood defined by giving birth or by who you are willing to carry, protect, and sacrifice for? And I feel like we kind of just went into that question in general. She didn't have biological children, but she was making those decisions, calming fear for children that were not hers. They were not biologically hers, but again, she was a mother to everyone. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's like I agree, like obviously like they being willing to sacrifice for your non-biological children and or people that you're just caring for is not if I, that's a mom.
Period.
But, just like you don't even have to have biological kids to and or people to be, that person or caretaker for them. And so it honestly feels like, like adoption. A lot of people are like, it's not that I, don't love my kids, like, they're my kids, even though they're not biologically mine, and so it's you learn to love and care about people and protect them, so even though she didn't have biological children, I that's, like, 100% motherhood to me. So, I agree.
And it kind of goes into my other question of, in your opinion, how much emotional and mental labor goes unrecognized when women take responsibility for others without that title or protection of being called a mom?
Yeah, that honestly makes me think a little bit like daycares and nannies,
Yes.
where they're taking care of your kid and everybody's children, and then people act like they're not like a partial caregiver for these children, making decisions, spending the bulk of your children's life with them. So, um, that's kinda I guess that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with like, in general, especially nannies, like if you have a nanny that is with you day in and day out, like they're part of your family. But on top of it, it is probably even more emotional at times and even more of a mental load because they're not their children. And so I know some nannies, I'm sure some caregivers feel like, okay, I need to do even more. So then this family feels like I am doing everything, upholding any rule that they would like me to. I mean, I feel like that's a large mental load in general. So, I mean, they're not called mom, but they're a part of that caretaking for your child. I know some people don't have great experiences, but, you know. But yeah, in general, her story also raises questions about chosen motherhood and community care. How many women today are acting as a caretaker, protector, and emotional anchor for people who are not technically theirs? Probably millions. So, ending Harriet Tubman and everything she did as quote unquote a mother, Harriet Tubman reminds us that motherhood has always existed beyond biology, rooted instead in responsibility, courage, and fierce protection.
Yes. And we love our Black queen. And we still have more Black queens to talk about. Let's talk about Sojourner Truth. So, Sojourner Truth, just like Harriet Tubman, was born into slavery and became a mother under a system that did not recognize her humanity or her rights. She experienced one of the most devastating losses as a parent that I personally don't know how I could go on. And so many slaves had to go through this, but her children were sold away from her. And as you could have imagined, like, I feel like that could just change and reshape somebody's just personhood forever. And so I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. So, but she's great, and this is why we know her, because instead of retreating into silence, Sojourner Truth turned her grief into advocacy. So she became a very powerful voice for abolition and women's rights, speaking openly about her experiences and refusing to make others comfortable, which I feel like so many people need to know how to do that. Like, I struggle with it so much where I'm just like, I'd say style it instead of like, trying to make myself known in places that might be uncomfortable. But she did not. She is great. But also, this kind of just raises a question: is there are a lot of things that go on in motherhood, especially things that happen just in life in when your kids are young, or in this exact instance, like, why are mothers expected to grieve quietly? Who decides what type of emotions are acceptable for mothers to express? Um, we could think about, grieving, even like grieving your past life with before kids, or grieving different types of phases of your children's life going away. They're not infants anymore and now they're toddlers, that kind of thing. So what do you think? Who decides what emotions are acceptable for mothers to express? Why are mothers expected to grieve so quietly?
I mean, men in general, society thinks that they can decide which emotions are appropriate or to make others feel comfortable, if you will. But I feel like mothers are expected to grieve quietly because I feel like we are expected, like, you wanted to have a child or you asked for this, so, like, hush and do what you asked for, hush and just take care of your child. And I feel like it makes us feel like it's unacceptable to, like you said, grieve our past life. Like, I can do both. I can grieve my past life before a mom, but also enjoy motherhood. And it's
Mhm.
not even just like grieving past life as a mom, but even like grieving people, like grieving that Naya doesn't have a grandpa on my side. And it's kind of like, oh, with that, it's like feel like I have to be happy all the time, just because I'm a mom and I want to show her those emotions. I want to show her to be strong and I want to show her, but also like it's okay to show emotions. It's okay to grieve. And I don't know where we picked that up, at what point where it was like moms are not allowed to show any emotion besides strength.
Yeah,
That's
and I would agree for sure. I truly think that there is a lot of which I don't know if everybody's chronically online like I am, but there's just like a lot of social media pressure to be so perfect and so like, oh, nothing bothers me. And this is how I'm, perfect on everything I'm doing. And you don't really get to see the behind the scenes of how stressed out and or the sad parts of motherhood or the lonely parts of motherhood as much as you get to see all of the very happy parts of motherhood that are probably very scripted and very much
mm,
not the whole truth. And so it is, I think there's just like so much life of ours right now is so based around this idea that people are perfect or trying to be perfect because of what we see online or
yeah,
TV.
I agree.
Yeah. But there's also a part of Sojourner's story that forces us to confront like how motherhood and anger intersect because you could obviously imagine how angry a mother would be if her kids were taken away from her and sold into slavery. I just like every time I say it, I can't like process it very well. Like that is just I would light some people's houses on fire with them inside if that happened. So, this raises the question, why is maternal rage so oftenly labeled as dangerous or inappropriate? Or what happens when a mother's pain is ignored or dismissed, as we see often? Her life shows us that motherhood does not always produce softness. It sometimes produces like resistance and clarity and an unwillingness to accept injustice. Her legacy invites us to reflect on how many mothers today still have to turn their pain into strength because this world does not leave them spaces to fall apart.
Mhm.
And I actually think I had a conversation last night with one of my friends. She is Mexican American and she is terrified to go pick up her kids alone because of ICE. And I don't know if everybody makes the connection. I'm assuming if you listen to us and you've listened to us by now, you probably are on a very anti ICE like we are. I can't imagine you want to listen to us and you aren't. But it is so interesting that there are like connections there of like slavery and taking children that we now see that like ICE is taking children in the US right now. And it is easy to sit and be quiet and be like, this is scary. I'm gonna not do anything. But I respect Sojourner in this and because she decided, okay, this happened to me and I'm going to make change. Yeah. Anyway, that's also my thought there. Kind of
Yeah,
rambling.
I agree. And the question of like, why is maternal rage so it's like commonly dismissed, or like why are moms' pain ignored ultimately was the question.
Hmm.
And I could go a step further and even say, since we're doing this for Black History Month, but commonly why are Black women and Black moms often ignored? And that kind of goes like, I know we did a podcast on this before, but all of those moms who had difficulties with having their child in the hospital because they were ignored, their pain was ignored, and that's just like a daily life issue as a Black woman or a Black mom, is like not showing that you are angry, because showing that you are angry in this society means that you are dangerous, and that is unacceptable and that's inappropriate. And so it's just it's frustrating. And it's frustrating that, like, raising a Black little girl, having to express that to her, I'm gonna have to teach her, in the future, like, I want you to be strong, but, like, in certain it's in society, you can't do X, Y, and Z because this could happen, and it's not fair, but it's kind of the life that we live in, honestly.
Yeah. And even I think of maternal rage. Um, it doesn't even have to be so, I guess, quote unquote serious as the conversation we're having, but I feel like it's always so valid. Even when I hear people talk about like postpartum rage and they're like, oh, I got so mad at my husband because of this and that. Every time I'm like, yeah, I would be mad too. Like, I don't really think it's postpartum rage. I think your husband needs to step up. I'm just saying maternal rage needs to be louder
Mhm.
more often.
Yeah, I agree. So moving into our next queen, especially talking about Black women not being heard and not being able to express how they feel, we're going to talk about Serena Williams. So, as we all know her, Williams, GOAT, greatest athlete of all time, just greatest of all time, just in general. But her story as a mother reveals how quickly society's perception of women shift after childbirth. So, with Serena Williams, after she gave birth, she experienced life threatening complications and she ultimately had to advocate for herself when, of course, medical professionals initially dismissed her concerns. A common story that we hear time and time again, and we're probably going to continue hearing, unfortunately. But that experience alone raises critical questions. And the first one is, why are Black women so often not believed? Damn it.
Mm.
When they speak about their own bodies. Why? I just don't understand. And why does motherhood require so much self advocacy, especially in the medical setting? Like, why do I have to advocate for myself so much when you can see my pain, you can see my anger, you can see it all? Why? Why do we feel like this is just a continued issue?
It is. It is so interesting, it's the best word I can think of right now, because especially in the medical setting, when you're, like, actually in the hospital, you're hooked up to wires and whatnot, and you're getting tested, like, I don't know if it's everybody, but I've always had high blood pressure when I give birth, so I had, like, a cuff on me, the entire time, so they know exactly where my blood pressure's at. I don't understand how so many Black women fall through the cracks so often. Um, like, what is that? Why does that keep happening? And it's like even the data being there is still not enough. The data being there, the voice of the woman saying that she's in pain and or needs something doesn't work. Like, it's so incredible to me that this is still a conversation happening when we have science and we have a very advanced medical system. Like, I just don't get it. It's so frustrating.
Mm.
Especially the part that when Black women are just, even if, like, without all of it, you could just say, "I'm hurting," or "Something's wrong," and your doctor should be able to sit with you and figure out what's going on instead of not being believed. Very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Very. I saw a TikTok the other day, a couple weeks ago, and it was a Black doctor saying, like, when you go to the doctor as a Black woman or the emergency room, say this and not this, and say this and not this, and pretty much like saying what you need or different like verbiage you could use so that you can be listened to. And it's like, thank you for that, like, not knocking her, but it's like, why do I have to memorize verbiage to be heard? I should just be able to say, "I'm in pain. Something
Mhm.
doesn't feel right, period. Hook me up to what I need to be hooked up to. I just pushed a baby out." Like, that's it. I don't need anything extra. I shouldn't have to say something in a certain way to be heard. And it's sad that, like, now we have doctors, like, preparing Black women to go to the ER so that they can get care that we should have already been getting from the beginning. So, yeah, very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yep.
And then also frustrating is when Serena returned to professional tennis as a new mom, her priorities and even her greatness were suddenly, of course, naturally questioned. Motherhood became something people used to diminish her instead of celebrate her, which it's like it should have been a celebratory thing. She's been the greatest of all time. Now she's in this next chapter. Why are we diminishing everything that she's done thus far? So it brings me to my next question of why does excellence feel threatening once a woman becomes a mom? Why is it so hard for society to hold space for us as women to be both ambitious and to also be moms and be within motherhood? Why can't we have both ultimately?
Yeah, and I think the crazy part is that even the goat of a sport, the best one, still has this negative association of being a mom attached to her, even though we all came from women. I think that's what Tupac said. Is it Biggie? Is it Tupac? One of them said we all came from women. Why do we hate our women? That's Tupac. Yeah. Okay. We all we all came from women. Why are we trying to ever put them down? I don't understand. Like the audacity to tell the goat that she's not as good as she was because she's now a mom is wild.
You're stronger because you're a mom, but here we are, negating
Yeah.
everything else. So, just in general, Serena's story connects Black history to the ever present and probably honestly to future to come. It highlights ongoing issues in Black maternal health, body autonomy, and identity loss after motherhood, which is so common, and I wish it wasn't. Her experience reminds us that the fight for recognition, safety, and respect for Black mothers is not just historical, it's honestly still happening now and not really going anywhere, sadly.
Yeah. It is very sad that it's just one of those things. I guess, I mean, it's important that we have Black History Month, that we continue to talk about these incredible women because clearly it's still an issue. And I mean, in the US, I'm not seeing it get any better. Um, so hopefully one day it will.
One day when my little girl is grown up.
Yeah, right? Hopefully when Sequoia and I are old enough to know what's going
Right.
on. All right. So our last beautiful woman we want to talk about. I was wavering on this one. So we are going to talk about Coretta Scott King, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware. I really wanted to do Michelle Obama, but they kind of have similar stories, in my opinion. So I didn't want to do both of them. But we all love Obama. So I just want to say that she's great. We all saw what Trump said about or posted about those two. And just want to say we love her. We're celebrating her. She is beautiful. All right. Coretta Scott King. So Coretta Scott King, mother of four, which I still, anytime I hear like more than three kids, I'm like, girl, are you okay? Why so many kids? But mother of four, and she was raising these beautiful Black children in the middle of the civil rights movement. As we know, she is the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And with that, that means that your family is now under constant threat. Her children had to like grow up in this world where they knew they had this amazing dad, but that amazing dad also was loved by so many, but also incredibly hated by so many people for using his voice. And so Coretta was just not going to stop supporting her husband, obviously. But now she had to be a mom and she had to manage like fear and public scrutiny and all the emotional safety of her children while being a part of history. And it is it raises the question, you explain like hate and violence to children without letting it like consume them? To be honest, I don't have the answers to those questions.
Mm.
I struggle with that, trying to figure out how to raise like a Black boy in this society, and then obviously a Black girl as well. But I do think like Black boys are like so scary to everybody, and they're it's just you see Black children just terrible things happen to them all the time. And so I have personally just like tried to live in a bubble of utopia and act like it's not a thing. But Abel is getting older and he is a lighter shade of Black, but hopefully that might help like police not shoot him down immediately.
But probably
But I
not.
don't know. You don't know. You like it doesn't matter. He's definitely still Black. So Anyway, all that to say, I have yet to figure out how to do that, and I feel like the world is getting a little bit scarier right now. I'm hoping it doesn't stay on this trend, but as of right now, it is kinda scary. So, what do you think?
I agree. I don't have an answer to this. And it's me and Nick have talked about like, oh, when we have a little boy, like, you're not black, but you are Hispanic. And not saying they're the same. So, what I'm saying is right now in society with ICE, we're still minorities, no matter what, even without ICE. But still a conversation he's going to have with him, of what to do if you get pulled over and what not to do and X, Y, and Z. And now it's like the issue of ICE, and so, for example, my husband has a Columbia flag in his car, and I'm like, "You have to take that down because you were born in Jersey, but they don't care." And so it's like, it's terrifying that, like, well, I mean, same thing, we'll have to have that conversation with Anaya too if the world continues to go this route because she's not a black little boy, but she's still a black little girl. She's looks black, and then, if she has a Columbia flag also in her car, now you're also could be deported. So it's very terrifying, and I really don't know how we're gonna handle that situation once it comes time to have those conversations. I think about it every day, but I don't have the answer right now.
Yep, I feel ya. Well, continuing Coretta Scott King's story, so after her husband was assassinated, um, the expectation is, you step back and you grieve privately and you fade into the background. But instead, she decided to step forward as these incredible activists do. She continued to work. She preserved his legacy. I actually actively see the family constantly telling like people to stop using his quotes out of pocket. Basically, like that's not what he was talking about. Don't say it like that. Which I respect. They're honoring his legacy as much as they can. But
Mhm.
then she's also like becoming a leader in her own right. And then also parenting through like this profound loss of their father. So her story raises questions that still resonate today. Like, why are the contributions of wives and mothers behind political figures so often minimized? And I'm just going to say, oh, Michelle Obama.
Mhm.
And how do mothers carry legacy while also trying to protect like their children's mental health and their emotional health? And with Coretta Scott King's life, it shows that motherhood can both be protective and visionary all at once. And I would like to say, now thinking through all of this, that maybe Coretta Scott King paved the way for Michelle Obama because it feels like their stories line up really well. I mean, Obama's not assassinated, thankfully, we love him. But there is a lot of like being a woman behind a political figure and raising children in the spotlight and having to see your father hated and loved like that it's a lot of correlations. I wonder if they see that too.
Yeah, yeah. Heavy, heavy stuff,
Yes.
but I'm glad that we were able to bring to light some really important Black queens. And hopefully, I mean, I feel like it brought a lot to the forefront of my mind of just different conversations I want to make sure I have with Naya as she grows up. Because at the end of the day, I always want her to feel like she's strong and you're a strong Black woman. Light skin or not, she's a strong Black woman.
Yeah. Yes, she is, and so is Sequoia. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We know this was a heavier episode, but it is important, especially in Black History Month, to talk about the women of our past that have shaped our future, and we really appreciate you sticking around listening.
Thank you guys. And please don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and continue engaging with us. See you next week. And of course, we don't know what we're talking about.
See you next week. Bye.
Two moms, too much coffee, tired eyes, but hearts so full. Thanks for tuning in with us. Hope you brewed a cup for you. The morning light is shining bright.